Well, hello, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to this session with a national retailer, which is TechStyle Fashion Group, outlining best practices for AI-powered virtual agents. My name is Brian Morin. I am your host and moderator for the day. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Smart Action. And with me is the star of the show, that's Artie Kasaboom. Artie handles, well, I think you can see his title on screen, quite a bit over there at TechStyle Fashion Group. Artie, great to have you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and looking forward to deep diving into some AI powered virtual agent and talking a little bit more about our use case and how we use Smart Action today, but also just generally best practices for AI powered virtual agents.
So I just put myself on the clock. We have 30 minutes to chat with you. And so Artie and I, we will do our best to condense this conversation down. Just to set the table here for what we are talking about is we're talking about the firsthand experience from TechStyle on best practices around AI-powered virtual agent implementation in the area of replacing Press One with the natural language experience on how can I help you today. TechStyle Fashion Group, they are the operator of brands like brands that you've heard, ShoeDazzle, Fabletics, JustFab. I think Artie will probably mention that in a minute. And we're going to be talking about not just the best practices on implementation, but the optimization that they've done with their omnichannel strategy to expand AI-powered self-service over both voice and digital channels. And over voice in particular, that saved them over $1 million in operating expenses in just the first 3 months of going live. So we're going to talk about best practice on implementation, the experience that TechStyle went through, what they've learned, what they would do different, and big piece of this is how to iterate and improve over time, so you're continuing to increase the containment and deliver the most frictionless experience that you can deliver to your customers or members. So just to give you an idea about who is Smart Action, we're here to highlight um, TechStyle and the work that Artie is doing, but just an idea about who we are for context. Smart Action delivers AI-powered virtual agents as a service. What that means is that we deliver the technology, the full conversational AI technology stack. It's turnkey, it's omni-channel. Most customers of ours do either voice only, and then they do chat on their own, or they'll do a combination of using us for voice and for chat. In the case of TechStyle, they do their own digital virtual agent on chat and using Smart Action leveraged over voice. And we step in as a service, meaning although we provide the full conversational AI technology stack, we deliver and bundle that with end-to-end CX services. And that means everything, the design, the build, the ongoing operation. So rather than try to sell software licenses or seats and throw them over the fence and wish you good luck, voice is a very different journey. Unless you're doing the absolute simplest of interactions, you're going to want experts in their field working as an extension of your team, and that's exactly what we do. And we like to think that approach is working for us, as we are the number one rated solution on Gartner Peer Insights, a 4.8 out of 5 as ranked by customer reviews. So, Artie, that's a little bit about Smart Action. They didn't join to hear about Smart Action, so I just kind of had to slip that in. Really, they're here to understand what's going on at TechStyle, and give, if you can, Artie, just a little self-introduction and talk about what you're doing on facts and figures, and then we'll get into our story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brian, for the warm intro. A little bit about me first. I've been in the contact center world for a little bit over 10 years. It's actually rounding about 15 to 18 years now. What I focus on is global customer service and what we like to call at Textile member services, teams and technology. So not only the operational side, but also the technology that powers the agents. And then when you get a little bit more advanced, you can focus a little bit more on the self-service and automation so that you can help with self-service deflection. You could help with reducing those kind of repetitive transactional type conversations. And that's what we've done very successfully here at TechStyle. Some areas of focus that I like to focus on are leadership, customer experience, customer success, customer service, site operations, because it does involve interacting and working very closely with not only managers, leaders, but frontline team members as you roll out these types of technologies. And then, of course, recruiting and people development. I'm currently the Senior Director of GMS Technology and Analytics and Product here at TechStyle. TechStyle is a conglomerate of 5 different brands. We're, as Brian said, we're online e-commerce retailer. We sell women's fashion lines, along with our newest brand, which is a subsection of Fabletics, which is Fabletics Men. And we partner very closely with celebrities. So Kevin Hart would be the example for Fabletics Men, and then Kate Hudson would be an example for Fabletics, and then Rihanna would be our example for Savage X Fenty, which is our lingerie line. Um, if I were a NASCAR driver, this would be all the logos that would be on my jacket or on my car. I've also worked for some pretty large marquee customers, Cornerstone On Demand and MindBody Online. So I just always love putting those in there just because it's just an array of different customer service and member services that we like to solve for.
And so, Artie, you mentioned you are the umbrella brand. I guess they can see some of that here on screen. So you have quite a diverse cross section of members calling in and experiencing your products.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd like to call out here is that, to Brian's point, it is a diverse group of people. We range all sizes, also both genders, male, female, and gender neutral. But we also do, ages from kids, literally kids, to the whole spectrum. Another thing to note here on this slide is that we do a monthly membership model, and that the only reason why I bring that up is if we have enough time when we get to the clip or the sample, you'll be hearing about how someone calls in and asks about their monthly membership model.
Yeah, good. So, Artie, some facts and figures.
Yeah, so this was 2020 numbers. 2021, we're going to surpass this, but we have 6 million phone calls per year, 3 million chats per year. We do about 9 minutes per transactional type conversation. Of course, we love to do self-service and reduce that so we don't have to have all 9 million contacts or conversations going to live agents. And you'll see that in kind of an upcoming slide. We have 5 million members, monthly members across the globe. So if you do your math, they contact us about 2 times or a little bit less than 2 times a year, which is quite often. We've got 12 countries, 7 languages, and we also support our members across social media as well too. I didn't mention that too heavily, but that's something else we offer as a support channel.
Yep, and some of your locations. So you're not just in LA, Artie.
Yeah, not just in LA. To support those 12 different countries, and 7 different languages, we have to support in multiple different regions, not only for a follow the sun global approach, but also from a language perspective, making sure that our agents have diverse language proficiencies. The majority of our contact center is in Davao, Philippines, which is roughly about 600 agents depending on peak. But we do have some scattered across the globe, some in North America, some in Europe, and we just opened up a contact center in Northern Africa. And the reason why I bring this up is without partnering with Smart Action, without self-service, this global footprint would probably double. We're sitting a little bit less than 2,000 team members globally. It would probably be in the 3,000 range if we had to handle the extra volume.
And one thing that's a really important plug for us here, you may already be aware, in fact, you may already own the book yourself. It was Artie, just about 12 months ago or more, where Artie wrote this book. And speaking about writing the book on it, Artie did. And it's Enable Better service. You can find it on Amazon.com. We're speaking to the area of technology-enabled self-service, which is, I think, just one of the chapters that Artie covers. So there's a lot of width and breadth to that. Artie, anything else that should be mentioned here?
Yeah, it's a very long book. It's about 16 chapters, but 4 of them, the first 4, go very heavily into self-service and automation. If you want a copy of this book, feel free to go on Amazon. If you want a copy sent from one of us, just reach out to us on LinkedIn. We'll be happy to send you one.
Yep, absolutely. And just so that anyone listening in, you can reach out to Smart Action directly about it, and we'll cover half of the cost of the book for you. So Artie, what we are looking at least just to set some context before we kind of get into a little bit of the origin story and what you did, let's just talk just a little bit about what's actually happening right now in the area of automation at the highest level, and then let's go in a little closer.
Yeah, and we'll drill into this a little bit later in the presentation, but this is a great snapshot of 2020 performance with our voice channel. So this is specifically voice. This is specifically how Smart Action helps us. I think the biggest one, I know it's the smallest font, but it says 92% of callers are either partially or completely self-serviced by Iva. Iva is our intelligent virtual assistant. And this is just raw numbers. So total calls coming in, partially contained calls, and fully contained. And the reason why we categorize it this way is that someone may go in and ask for IVA, or we call it AI Anna, the bot to actually respond and do something for them. And then they still might want to talk to a live agent, whether it's just to confirm what happened and or they have another question that may be a little bit more complex. So that's kind of that middle area right there. At the bottom there, the fully contained calls, those are people who call in, they have some sort of process performed, like a where's my order lookup. It reads that information back to them. And then there's no need to talk to an agent. So we ask them, would you like to talk to a live agent? They say no. And then we say, thank you so much. And then they get a survey a little bit later asking them how they enjoyed the experience. So this is a great breakdown. It also gives you a little bit of an insight, and I'm kind of stealing your thunder in an upcoming slide, Brian, but on how you could layer your support and your self-service. It doesn't have to be a black or white. It doesn't have to be total calls deflected. It can help assist the agent with the screen pop later by partially containing the information.
And that's a common conversation we will have with with net new conversations where maybe conversational AI is a bit of a black box, thinking we need to have fully contained calls when in fact we see that there's a number of interactions. We don't even want to fully contain all of that call, but we might be able to contain 50% of that call or 75% of that call, doing some upfront triage or gathering of information, and then hand over the rest of that conversation to the live agent to finish up with a screen pop of context. So there's more than one way to deploy a virtual agent. At the end of the day, it's to help the live agents that you have and alleviate the burden of the calls that are coming in and the overall handle time that would be required. So, Artie, I know that we'll jump in and kind of start talking about what the application actually does for you. We'll get into a little bit about what you've learned, that that our audience can glean. Clearly, though, you don't go down a path like this without there being challenges in front of you first that put you on that path.
Yeah, so before we started with Smart Action, before we had this project of self-service deflection and looking towards some sort of automation or AI to help us with that, we tried to outline all of our challenges that we faced as a organization. So not necessarily our challenges as a customer service team, but specifically as an organization, how do we better develop efficient ways to support our customers and our members? So what we did was we boiled it down into 3 specific buckets. We try to be as specific as possible. We realized that we're not a revenue generating center. So our goal was to self-serve or deflect. Now, the reason why I call it out is because there may be other revenue generating type organizations that might use these for different purposes. Validating the prospect or the lead before going to a sales rep, and that can be completely usable in a great use case. We just don't have that, so we wanted to make sure we identified that we weren't revenue generating. We're only doing triage and support. We had huge monthly volume spikes. We wanted to make sure that we rounded that out with self-service, so that as those monthly spikes went up, that our self-service tools were also servicing a greater percentage of the volume coming in. And then we wanted to make sure we were automating without sacrificing any customer experience. So we didn't want to just put something out there that just frustrated all of our customers. So one of the reasons why we selected Smart Action as a partner here is the actual natural language voice, the way that the bot doesn't feel like a robot. And you don't have to say the word operator 10 seconds after it engages with you. We wanted to make sure that we were automating but not sacrificing that experience.
Good. So, Artie, this is kind of a good spot. I think you segued nicely with the last statement that you made about you're looking for that natural language component. When you're standing back and you're looking in and you're looking at what are the most common available tools within contact centers, you can think of that as the simplest of chat bots, or touch tone IVR. And really the problem at the end of the day is that they just offer no opportunity to expand automation into your contact center and alleviate some of the real problems that you're having.
Yeah, and what we realized was the majority of our calls were pretty simple. Where's my order? Can you help me update my billing address? These are all things that would take an agent 8 minutes to complete, and then the member is sitting on hold for 2 minutes until they get to that agent. So it's really like a 10-minute experience for the member. And that's really frustrating, especially if you have something that's really simple, or if you're on the road and you're driving, you don't want to have to pull out your credit card to repeat back a credit card number for billing updates or anything like that. So what we did was we boiled it down to kind of three different categories: the simple, complex, and things that absolutely need to talk to live agents or humans. And we try to automate as much as possible at the upper level of that triangle. And then anything that gets a little bit more complex, we'll try to automate some of it, if not the majority of it, and then transfer to a live agent. And then, of course, there's just some things you can't automate. If someone's
Right.
really frustrated and they want to talk to a
Hmm.
supervisor, you can't automate that. You can't record a voicemail and then send it on. That doesn't have that personal touch. But the reason why it's a triangle is that we found that the majority of our volume was really in the simple realm, and then it kind of migrated towards complex. And in reality, a lot of the human interaction, or a lot of the live agent failovers, it's a lot smaller as compared to the top of that pyramid.
Right. So, that slide, it's kind of a little abstract as far as the gradients of what you can consider. The most obvious low hanging fruit certainly is the simple, transactional, highly repetitive call types. As you go beyond that into the layers of complexity, the line begins to blur. What should stay with automation? What should go to a human? But when it hits pay dirt, I mean, on screen, Artie, I mean, this is pay dirt for you at TechStyle. This is what the virtual agent is actually doing and offering that self-service path. So why don't you maybe just take us through a little bit of that experience? How does it start, and how would somebody end up in one of these self-service applications with the virtual agent?
Yeah, and this slide really just outlines exactly what we're looking for functionality wise. So when we're going through the RFP, when we're going through the vendor selection process, we really wanted to make sure that it had natural language, it had routing, we could do authentication easily, order management, update accounts, billing, support. And we also wanted to make sure that it had the capabilities to integrate with our chat as well, just to create that omni-channel experience that people can migrate from phone to chat, chat to phone, or eventually to SMS if needed, even though we don't support SMS today on our side. The other thing that's good to call out here is that our telco, our contact center platform is Genesis. We actually had Nice in Contact right before that. So another key part of the RFP process was making sure that our vendor, so Smart Action, was able to connect to the foundational layers that we have with regards to our telco, and they did it just perfectly. And it's one of those things that you don't really think about. And I think in the next couple of slides, you talk a little bit about
Hmm.
how Smart Action is a as a service product. Those are the things that you need help with. Those are the things that you usually don't have experts on your team in customer service that could help you with that connectivity piece into the telco that you have today.
So then, just for the sake of the audience, we will just level set up, well, kind of what are these core capabilities? What could I expect from an Ivan intelligent virtual assistant that is at the very bleeding edge of what AI is capable of doing in the area of self-service? So on screen, just gives you a little bit of idea. If I were to package all of it together, really at the end of the day, it is uh, all the tools that are needed to mimic live agent behavior. And that's where AI is at right now. You can see, the bottom left as far as where the AI is involved. It's actually stacking three AI engines together between recognition and cognition. You have your advanced speech, your automated speech recognition under the recognition piece. But that's not it. In fact, even some voice packages, that's all you'll get is just the ASR only portion. Under the cognition is some really important technology in the area of natural language understanding, because speech rec is never 100% right. And the big takeaway in the contact center and in customer service, you have the ability to predict what a customer might say as far as a limited aperture of responses to any given question. So from a service angle, you can fine tune what you're doing from an NLU standpoint, because speech rec is never 100% right. And you do have to have a fail safe that's tailored to your interactions that can match the language acoustic models from what you heard against what you're listening for. Because again, speech rec is never 100% right. We've all experienced that. And a big piece of this, which we'll show on the next slide, is the NLP, the natural language processing. So you actually can have a natural language give and take with the virtual agent that greatly reduces the amount of friction to get something done. And we'll just show just one example of that. And then Artie will get into starting that journey and just strategically the decisions that need to be made.
Hello, thank you for calling Fabletics. How can I help you today?
Billing.
I'd be happy to help you with your billing question. Is the name on the account Sarah Peters?
Yes.
Are you calling about the $49.95 charge billed on or around July 19th?
Yes.
Okay, what's your question regarding this charge?
I skipped the month. I should not have received this charge.
Looks like you were charged because you did not make a purchase or skip by the 5th of the month. This charge is added to your account as a member credit that you can use at any time. Would you like to keep the credit in your account?
No, I'd like to be refunded the money as I skipped the month on July 3rd.
Okay, no problem. Your refund has been successfully processed. Please note that it may take up to 7 business days for your bank account to reflect the change. Is that everything for today?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for your call and have a great day.
Bye-bye.
So just a couple quick call outs is you can see how that call started with tension. The caller was certainly in a position of tension. They almost always all are when they call in. That's why they're calling customer service. And you can see how the virtual agent took it from tension to resolution in 90 seconds. And I would argue that happened faster than it would have happened had there been a human on the other end of that call. And Artie, I think that this is also showcases what you're doing as a business to make a business rule in this case to make it a frictionless experience. Because as soon as the virtual agent was able to sniff out the problem and what they needed, you already had a business rule in place that wasn't going to harass the customer, the member about it, but immediately deliver that refund to them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of power that goes behind what you guys just saw. I know that was about 90 seconds or something like that, but there's a lot of CRM lookups. So not only did it look up some basic profile information, tell them exactly how much they were charged, their name, all that stuff, but it's also quantifying in the back end whether or not this person is a high enough value of a customer to give them a refund. And if they weren't high enough value of a customer to give them a refund right there on the spot, through our IVA, it would have asked them to be transferred to a live agent, and then a live agent would try to handle that and create a better experience. But yeah, there's a lot going on in the background, but you guys make it look and feel pretty simple.
So Artie, before someone gets started in automation over voice and or chat, the very first decision you have to make is picking the strategic direction on how you plan to tackle that particular channel. Right now, this is a binary decision in the contact center. It's a classic buy versus build conversation where you have to choose, if you want a DIY product that you procure and that you build out your own team, or do you outsource to a team of experts, like us in our case, who work as an extension of your team. So in the case of TechStyle, you chose the path of DIY for chat. but then you chose outsourcing when it came down to voice. So maybe you can step us through just a little bit about how you came to that decision as the best decision for TechStyle.
Yeah, and we started with voice. Voice was our first channel for self-service. It was back in 2015, and we wanted to tackle our highest volume. That's why we started with voice, but also our most complex channel. Voice is a lot harder than a text-to-text like conversation, like chat or SMS or social media. So that's where our origin story begins. The reason why we wanted to go with outsource with voice was there's so many layers of complexity that we didn't know. We didn't have the internal resources. We didn't have the know-how. We didn't even know where to start. It's kind of like learning how to make a pizza from scratch and like kneading the bread, and not even ever creating a pizza ever before. So starting from scratch was a huge chasm to cross or a huge hill to climb. Um, Afterwards, we decided to dip our toes a little bit into the DIY, and we started to do that about 2 years ago with chat, and it was pretty successful. Not as successful as our launch with the voice channel back in 2015 with Smart Action. And the reason why it was not as successful is because we have to have an army of people, even though it's not like tens of people, it's actually just 2 people that are dedicated and focused towards not only creating the intents, but also creating the chat flows and maintaining the bot
Mm-hmm.
on a regular basis. So it may come at a slightly easier from a time frame standpoint, and we have a little bit more control, but it's not producing the way that our voice product is producing and has been producing since 2015. And those are some of the differences. DIY, you're going to need more resources internally. You're going to have to troubleshoot, break fix. You're going to need a project manager. You're going to need ongoing support and auditing and QA and learning all these complex tool sets like intent mining and understanding intents and confidence rates. Those are all things that you'll need specialists to do. Whereas in the outsource model, how we use Smart Action, it's literally just, this is our idea of what we want to do. We put it on a whiteboard or a paper, and then Brian and his team basically develops it for us, allows us to have it in a pilot, and then we test it out. And once it's successful, then we roll it out to the live team members.
So Artie, when someone is getting started with their AI-powered self-service journey, of course, there are a lot of unknowns. You spoke to some of that. You originally started with some of these same key considerations on screen, but by now you've gone so far on your journey, you have fully fleshed out each of these and have operationalized them with your own set of best practices. We could spend the full 30 minutes answering just the 4 questions on screen. But when you see organizations struggle in their own self-service deployments, what do you think are some of the most common mistakes that get made?
Yeah, and for everyone who's viewing this, I recommend screenshotting this right here. And these are the 4 questions you should be asking your potential providers and vendors, because they'll have answers for you, and they'll have much better answers than I might have for some of these. But yeah, it's where to get started. It's this huge uphill battle to get even your first level of automation. And most people think, well, chat, that's probably the easiest, and there's a million chatbots out there. Let me just go ahead and deploy one of those. What they don't realize is that it's probably not the best channel to do it for a couple reasons. One, your customers more likely than not call you over the phone. That's probably your highest channel of volume. Why would you not address your the lion's share first before you're going into a channel that's has less volume? So that's one thing you want to consider and one thing you want to think about before you go into the chatbot experience. And then I've seen time and time again people starting with chat and then trying to just replicate that into voice, and they're completely different animals.
Right.
A chat experience, you may be able to give them links. You might be able to have really long, like paragraph length responses. Where on the voice channel, it's got to be quick. It's got to be a fluid response. It may be a much longer flow as you're going through kind of that paragraph worth of information. You might want to tell them a little snippet and ask them if they want to know more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more until it's complete. So that's kind of the which interaction should we automate first section from a channel perspective. And then the thing that I'd probably like to bring up, and I think Brian, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, start with the simple things. Don't start with complex things.
Hmm.
Don't boil the
Hmm.
ocean. You're not going to do everything all at once. Just
Right.
start on the things that are a little bit more transactional, like reset my password, update my account info. Start there. Start with authentication and a little bit of those transactional easy wins, and then you'll be able to expand on that. It doesn't have to be like a one and done implementation. It can be phased out. And that's why you need a partner to be able to walk you through that. You need a project manager. You need people to help build those flows, maintain the current flows, and do some versioning for you as your business not only grows, but also as it evolves as well too.
So Artie, we're getting really close here to the bottom of the hour. But this is a big part really of the talk track, and I know we don't have a lot of time to dig into this, but we certainly do need to touch on it. That from the outside looking in, as someone new to the area of conversational AI and offering some kind of natural language self-service, I think they think almost exclusively in the terms of, well, the work is in the design and the build, and then implementing and integrating and going live, and then arms folded, the work is done. When in fact, this is a journey, and maybe what some don't necessarily know or don't know as well, it's not just design, build, and go live. It's about iterate and improve after you go live, because after all, at the end of the day, you are having conversations with machines. You never really know what's going to happen until customers actually do. And we find that there's a lot of handholding after go live, particularly in the first few months and first year of any new application going live, where you're constantly monitoring and reporting and fine tuning on what you can do to improve the experience and increase containment.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add to that, and you framed it out perfectly, and I think this slide kind of speaks to itself. The only thing I'd like to add is that businesses are ever changing. So you may think that your business might be the same forever, but you know, no one predicted COVID or the pandemic hitting and then affecting all of our businesses in different ways. You need a team of people, and hopefully it's you have the expertise internally if you have a do it yourself type environment, or you need some sort of partner like Smart Action that has the services behind it so that they could pivot on a dime. The minute the pandemic hit for us, we wanted to make sure that all COVID related cancellations were tracked a certain way and had a certain path. That was as easy as an email, and it was changed overnight. I think it was like March 11th is when we went live with that. If we had to do that ourselves, we probably would have taken 2 or 3 months. We probably would have had to pull 4 or 5 different people on an engineering mindset and a project manager off of a different project to be able to make that pivot and make that change for our business changes. And that's just an example of the pandemic, but businesses change all the time. It's good to have a partner that has the capabilities to change with you.
And this slide, this is just a slide, just say what type of expertise is needed, to do best of breed in the area of speech. This just gives a little bit of a snapshot to how we've curated teams. So here at Smart Action, if you're building your own team to do your own voice on your own, it would likely be a reflection of something similar to what we're doing here. Each face represents their own team of people behind them. It just goes to show, as much as we're talking about AI, it doesn't go anywhere without the actual humans that are actually doing something with it, the design and the build, and iterating, improving over time. Artie, I like this. You'd mentioned not wanting to sacrifice an ounce of CX, on go live. How does that customer experience with AI? How does it look for you?
Yeah, so we get a lot of our feedback on social media because that's how our customers engage with us. That's how they know our brand and where they buy their products. So a lot of the responses we get, I love the one in the middle. It's, I just talked to an automated customer service line that understood full sentences, worked better and faster than actual people. That is exactly what we were looking for in a partner and exactly what we were looking for in a technology. We wanted to make sure that it didn't sound like a robot and you didn't have to repeat yourself 3 or 4 times. I know in the demo earlier, it's almost like a good example, I should say, or a great example. But there's plenty of times, and they happen all the time in our contact center, where someone has background music and they're trying to say something, or someone's like muffled or has a very, very soft voice. It still picks up that information and processes the information appropriately. And we're extremely happy and amazed by the technology that goes behind that.
So, Artie, I know those listening in. I mean, this is our second to last slide. They're probably just, well, what does this actually mean to you from a business standpoint? I mean, this slide has it all. I don't know if there's a wrapper that you need to put on this, or if it just stands on its own.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is the top one right there is $1.1 million in the first year savings. And then we didn't sacrifice any customer service. So our satisfaction score was very, very high, 92%. And we had at least an 18.5% in our first year with regards to containment average, which is absolutely incredible.
So if you are already doing conversational AI, or maybe it's not a fit for you, you can just ignore this. But if you are in the shoes of looking down the path of starting this journey on your own, next steps are on screen on how you can get a hold of Smart Action. info@smartaction.com. You can go to smartaction.ai, and that typically starts with experiencing a demo of what we're already doing in your industry to see how we are supporting the use cases that are real in your contact center, and then also help step you through your own free AI readiness assessment. Are you ready for AI? Is the low-hanging fruit there? Can we guarantee you'd see the ROI and a CX that's as good or better than a human, and let you know in short order if it's the right fit. So with that said, we certainly appreciate everyone's time joining this session. And Artie, can't thank you enough for making time out of your busy day and joining us for the session.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Brian. Thanks, Michael, for having me and listening to the story.
Yep. Thank you all.